chapter 24, verses 13 to 35. In life, there are times that when we go through excruciating pain, sometimes this spiritual blindness can happen. A lot of times, we don't actually question the existence of God. But a lot of times, through that dark, challenging times, we tend to question His presence. A lot of times we ask, where are you, God, in my disappointments? But what happens is when we go through those times when our dreams are shattered, when our plans don't work out, we tend to lose sight of the most important thing that we actually have, that we are not alone. And that gives us context to this road to Emmaus. So the passage that we just read tells us of the story of the two disciples walking 7 miles from Jerusalem. Imagine putting all their hopes and dreams into the Jesus that they followed for the past 3 years, expecting Him to build His kingdom, and then watching Him die. So they were walking away from what they thought was the end of the story. They were walking away from dreams that they thought would never happen. Dreams that are shattered. So they were frustrated. They were disappointed. They were brokenhearted. And the beautiful thing that happened here is that Jesus walked beside them in their frustration and disappointment. You know what happened here was that when Jesus appeared in their presence, He did not just instantly take away their pains. But what we see here is that as the disciples were discussing among themselves, they were thinking and recounting and calling back everything that's happened when Jesus died. So it's like they can't believe it. But Jesus came alongside them. And what did He do? He did something beautiful. We call this the theology of His presence. He walked beside them. He accompanied them. He was there with them. He listened to them. He even asked them. So it's comforting that this doesn't happen just ages ago. This happens with us right now. And the Lord's reminding you, you may be walking your own Emmaus road away from something that shattered your heart, away from something that frustrated you or disappoints you. The reality is you're not walking alone. Jesus is accompanying you. His presence is with you as you walk through that Emmaus road. So take note, Jesus shares their journey. Luke 24:15 says, Jesus Himself came up and walked along them. He shares their journey. He listens to them. He accompanies them. And then He starts to preach to them and then open their eyes. I don't know what your Emmaus road looks like, but God knows. And He won't let you traverse that road alone. Sometimes it's just we're too deep focused on our frustrations and troubles that we tend to forget that God is actually with us all along. So the second lesson that we learn from this story on the road to Emmaus is that Jesus rewrites the story that we think is over. This chapter in the book of your life may look like it's over. It may look like it's a failure, but Jesus is rewriting it because it's not about the events. It's about the narrative. It's about the full picture. It's about the whole story that He's writing for your life. In Luke chapter 24, verses 25 to 27, this is where Jesus starts to recall what has actually been said and told about Him. From Moses, breaks down all the prophecies that has been told about Him, explaining and breaking it down to His disciples that, hey, what happened on Friday is not the end of the story. It's just the beginning. Because the disciples, they were so focused on the events. But Jesus wanted them to see, this is just part of the whole redemptive story that God is writing. Disciples were so focused on the failure, but Jesus was wanting them to see and realize that his death on the cross was the fulfillment of God's promise of salvation. The disciples' eyes were so focused on that Friday, but it was actually already Sunday. Victory has already been won. Jesus has risen, but their eyes were so closed. Jesus was wanting them to shift their interpretation of what is happening. And I think we also need that paradigm shift when we look at our lives. We tend to judge our lives based on the current situation that is happening. Don't judge the book by the unfinished chapter. Our lives are still unfinished chapters. So one failure does not define you. One closed door does not mean it's the end. A closed door, it doesn't mean that that's rejection. It may just be God redirecting you somewhere else, leading you somewhere else. The last thing that we see here is the beauty of the Lord opening their eyes at the table. Luke 24:30-31 says, when he was at the table with them, he took bread, he gave thanks, he broke it, and then he gave it to them. And when they were at the table, when they were having this communion at the table with him, that intimacy, it's when their eyes were opened because of that intimacy that his disciples shared with Jesus. That when they were there communing at the table, they recognized it was this same familiar hands that was crucified that is now blessing and breaking and giving the bread. It's their intimacy with him, it's their familiarity with him, that when they were at the table, their eyes were finally opened. And they remembered the sacrifice. And so now at this point, from despair, from frustration, the Lord opened their eyes and everything made sense. And they now understood that this was all part of God's redemptive story. And this breaking of bread that Jesus did points them to his sacrifice. So they recognize Jesus. It's a very, very powerful reminder of Christ's sacrifice for all of us. That he was broken for us. That he died for us. But it did not end there. That he rose in victory. And that he remains with us every single moment of our lives. The Savior who still walks with his people is reminding you today. If you're walking in your Emmaus road, have you recognized the Jesus who's walking beside you? If your eyes are clouded with that grief and despair and frustration, Jesus Christ is right here with us. Jesus Christ is right here with you. If you're going through a difficult time right now, if you're walking away from heartbreak, from what you think is failure, don't lose sight of the Jesus that we have. Keep that moments of intimacy that you have with him. So there are 3 ways that I invite you to respond to the word today. First is, your feelings are valid, but stop running away from your Emmaus road. Acknowledge your feelings. Number 2, let Jesus reframe your story. You cannot rewrite it on your own. Let go. Release it to the Lord and let the Lord have his way. And lastly, as we take communion today, let's recognize everything that Jesus Christ has done for us. Oh, praise be